Brenna Drury, hi.
Hi,
So good to see you.
you too. It's been a while.
It has been a moment. For anybody who does not know you, who are you today?
I am a makeup artist and hairstylist in New York, cat mom, and for the past few years, I've been doing a lot of like self exploration um, and the work, if you will. So
Mhm.
balancing those two major parts of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you bring that into the space as part of the thing, like how it's not just, the career hat, it's also the personal hat and how those two things go hand in hand, especially with the work that we do.
I actually like have that as one of my notes because I was thinking about it and like my identity for so long has been Brenna as a makeup artist. And
Mhm.
what I wrote is that it's always going to be there for me. And that
Mm.
it's like, I'm sure that's the same with a lot of um, like forms of art that like, even if you aren't working like the height of your career at the moment, if you're like being a mom or taking care of your mental health or anything in between,
Mhm.
it's like you're still an artist. Like that's still
100%.
part of me. So, yeah, I've been trying to like be easy on myself, um,
Mhm.
and like know that I can be both. I can do both.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating because I think that people prioritize not necessarily the self part or like the self excavation part of it, but they take for granted the self part rather than the artistry part. Like, I actually think it sounds like you have it the other way around where you know your worth in your art, and now you're trying to foster the human part,
Yeah,
where I feel like so many artists that we've had in this space are actually the opposite, where it's like they've really, like, spent the time on themselves, but, like, they do not trust, frankly, that their art is always there and that they are an artist no matter how much they're working or little or, like, that part. And I
yeah.
think it's helpful to be reminded that both that people exist who do and feel all of that.
Well, I'll say that like I think it's a little bit more recent for me
Mhm.
that I've been like comfortable there. Like a little backstory of like where that mentality started was that
Yeah.
I was with an agency, a celebrity based agency for 5 years, and the like notoriety and the attention and the respect that I got there, it felt really great. It like, came like mentally with its own uh little like bumps along the way. But when I left them, I was questioning my self worth and I was questioning
Mm.
my worth as an artist and if anyone would care about me still.
Mhm.
And like something that I'm proud of is that I gave myself the space and the time away from
Mm.
another agency. Like I got the advice to like, set yourself up, like go somewhere else. But I like my soul was telling me it's like, why don't you figure out what it is that you want?
Mm.
Like you know what you don't like, but what is it that you want?
Yeah.
And yeah, that space to like discover like who I am.
Yeah.
I was still doing makeup, but I wasn't like pressuring myself to like move on to the next project or work with the
So good.
the next person. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good you listened to yourself and not the hustle that the industry is demanding of us so much. What a gift you gave yourself. I'm curious how you began this journey, how you knew you were good at makeup, hair, how you discovered that this was a possible career. Like, how did this all come to be?
Well, I knew I liked it,
Mhm.
but I have to give like a giant chunk of credit to a teacher I had in middle school and
Okay.
my mom and my sister. Um, when I was in middle school, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 11. And so I had extra time. I was in extra classes,
Mhm.
or like I didn't have to take language and whatever. And I had one teacher who recommended a like a cosmetology program in a vocational school.
Wow. Even when you were that young?
Yeah, and I was
Wow.
like float like I will admit that like a lot of my life I've kind of like floated through things because
Mhm.
I just it was overwhelming and just I was
Mhm.
trying to do the best I could. So she recommended it, and my sophomore year to my senior year, I did cosmetology throughout high school.
Wow.
A blessing, such a blessing. It was really fun. Um, and from there, I tried community college.
Okay.
um, didn't go so well for me.
Mhm.
Um, but then I kind of started partying a little too much after high school, and I was a little lost. And my sister and my mom were like, "You need to do something with your life. You're going to makeup school." So they found the makeup designery, which was in Soho at the time. And so I did a 10-month program there. And
Wow.
that's when I really fell in love with makeup, because cosmetology school is like mostly, it's like the basics, but it's like a lot
Mhm.
of hair, and, you learn like nails and facial or whatever. And it's like not a lot of makeup, if at all.
Mhm.
Um, so I did that, and then started like assisting. And I think assisting is so important because it taught me like what I like and what I don't like, and it taught me like the possibilities that were there, and that was so like eye opening for me.
Yeah.
Like all the
Who
different places.
like, what kinds of assisting were you doing? Like, people who were working on what kinds of clients?
A lot of editorial,
Mhm.
and like commercial shoots.
Mhm.
I was doing some bridal.
Mhm.
Um, that was like mainly how I started, like the advertising, commercial assisting, a lot of
Mhm.
editorial. Um, and like, I guess like that is how my journey to like knowing my talents, because I do both. Like not everybody does makeup and hair.
Mhm.
I was like the artist that I was working with, they would like be like, "Oh, can you like do this hair or whatever?" And what I learned is that a lot of artists will take jobs that are for makeup and hair and hire either a makeup assistant or a hair assistant to kind of do
Mhm.
that, and then they take majority of the money. But I was like, this is great. People trust me. I get to like got images, like
Yeah.
it worked out how it did. Once I like realized what was happening, I was like, oh, okay, like I am capable of doing the job on my own.
Mhm.
So I very much have learned along the way. There was no template that I followed, or
Mhm.
yeah, I just kind of flowed.
Yeah. And so now when you are hired, do they have to caveat whether it's for both hair and makeup? Do you have to ask in advance? Like, how does it work? And then
I'm kind of a stickler
yeah,
for that now, and it's mostly to advocate for the industry as a whole.
in what way?
It's kind of a huge topic and a huge problem, I'll say, in our industry, where brands don't want to pay full rates. So they get someone who does both, and like will either
Mhm.
like cut it in half. So essentially who's doing the job is doing it for the price of one. Or they'll like lower it enough where it's like, as an artist it's enticing, because it's like, okay, I could make, X amount more than I would be making.
Mhm.
Um so I do understand why people do it. I'm like guilty of it as well, but it really undercuts the industry.
Yeah.
And it like, I feel like it dilutes the talent of the individual.
So when you're hired, you're like, "Okay, you're hiring me for this specific skill set and also this specific skill set, or it's just one or the other."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll say like that they're like two different jobs. So
Okay.
this is my like rate for makeup, and this is my rate for hair. And as long as it's like enough that I would take the job solo, like if I would take X amount for makeup,
Mhm.
even if it's like less than like my full day rate,
Mhm.
I'll, work with the clients. Cause some people
Amazing.
like genuinely the budget is lower, but it's high
Mhm.
enough for me to feel like I'm getting paid adequately.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a delicate dance, but I try and like, I don't intentionally let people undercut me. Like I don't
Good.
want to be that person.
Yeah. No, I mean, you need to know your worth and you need to get your worth, and arguably the people who are gonna hire you at your rate are the people who are going to respect your work. So I
Yeah.
feel like everyone ends up winning.
If I accept X, then they're gonna expect that
Right.
moving forward.
Exactly.
And I just like them
Exactly.
to know hairstylists and makeup artists are separate crafts. And like, if you were to hire two people, this is what you would be paying.
Great. Well, let's break it down. What exactly are these crafts? So let's say I'm either trying to hire you to be one of these things,
Hmm.
or I am interacting with you as the client in either of these hats. What is the interaction? What is the play? What are the responsibilities?
So it depends on the job that we're at. Typically know beforehand who I'm kind of uh, reporting to. If it's a private client, if it's bride, I'm speaking directly to them. We're having the like prior to booking, like I learn their expectations, make sure that like we're the right fit, um, which is extremely important. And if it's like a job where there's going to be like a team, finding out who, because sometimes there'll be like a lot of cooks in the kitchen. So like
Yeah.
who is directing the vision, and that's typically who I'm reporting to. Um,
Okay.
Something that I think has shifted a little bit, especially with like the jobs that I'm on, um, is when I am working with like models that used to be like the standard where it's like I don't know if you've heard this where they're like the hanger.
Mhm.
That kind of crossed over to like makeup and
For those who don't know that, what are we referring to?
basically like that they're not a human. They are a hanger that
Right.
the clothes sit on, or
Yep.
like they're just like the visual. Um, and that kind of crossed over to hair and makeup, where it would be like they had absolutely no say.
Mhm.
Where depending on the job, sometimes they like don't really, but I always like to make sure that they're comfortable, that they have water,
Mhm.
that they've been able to eat, like those things that don't have anything to do with hair and makeup, but have everything to do with like our vibe and
Yeah.
just like our interaction. Like I want them to know that like I am taking care of them,
Yeah.
not only the way that they look, but because it starts with us. Like whether it's like red carpet or a bride or any of these things, like
Mhm.
the talent starts with us. So I try and
Yeah.
like, keep that in mind.
Yeah. And in terms of, like, your actual responsibility, like, as, um, hair and makeup, like,
Yeah,
what is that?
that also depends on the job.
Mhm.
Some clients have like this vision that like I just make come to life.
Mhm.
Um, Sometimes they have absolutely no idea what they're looking for, and I will like pull inspiration. I will give my opinion. And sometimes it's like in the middle, like they have this idea, but like my professional opinion is a little different. So I'll
Yeah.
let them know where I'm coming from and what I can bring to the table, and see if we can like work together, collaborate a
Yeah.
little bit. But
Yeah.
I think something that like sets me apart from some artists is that some artists like have a look or have a way of doing things, and that's
Mhm.
just it, and that's what they're hired for. I'm a little bit more flexible. I
Mhm.
I like to just like make the people that I'm working with happy, and like
Yeah.
whatever way I can do that within my comfort zone, I'm like happy to do.
Yeah, which is why I think you're in this space right now is because of your flexibility and the way that you work, and I would call it your collaborative spirit around it, where it's like you recognize that this is part of a bigger picture and there are
Yeah.
human beings involved who care and they all have a lot of feelings and opinions about all of the things and how can we all come out feeling seen,
Yeah.
contributing to the thing, working together to make sure that everyone is as happy as they possibly can be and also like understood for what they want within this vision. Yeah,
Yeah.
which I think is
Definitely.
great. What about like let's do an example. I'm all about an example.
Okay.
Let's say I am booked on set and you've been hired for this set to be the makeup artist. Let's say it's not something that's like, crazy in terms of, it's not like special effects makeup, which is a whole other conversation. Like let's say this is like, not like basic, but like you're putting on nothing that's insane on my face.
Okay.
With that said, what am I as the arguably the client in this situation, though I didn't hire you specifically. I'm here. What is my responsibility to you? How do I show up? How do I interact with you? Like what is it for me showing up on set, not having known you beforehand? Like
Yeah.
what do I do? Let's like break this down as like your
Um,
ideal I walk in.
I'd say it starts at home with like this is just obviously like my opinion. I don't mean
Yeah.
anything rude by this, but like with hygiene.
Okay.
Um, say like making sure that you're like teeth are brushed, your skin is like, it doesn't have, you could walk in with makeup and I would take it off, but like making sure that like the hygiene is safe for like me and for you.
Mhm.
Be off your phone, off of your computer.
Mhm.
I like I said before, like I don't want anyone to be like sitting in my chair starving, but like you could eat a little bit before, or like if you only have a few minutes, I'll just be like eat really quickly. So
Mhm.
like not doing all of that stuff like while you're in the chair. It does
Mhm.
take longer for me, which can affect the client,
Mhm.
which comes back to me. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, just like really just like relaxing and like letting me do my job.
Mhm.
Communicating, like if you have, I'll like typically ask if there's anything that I should know about your skin, like communicating if there's any allergies, like um I always ask, do you want me to curl your lashes or would you prefer to do it? Some people get like scared or like don't like things too close to their
Mhm.
eyes. So just like speaking up about like those things are important for me. I never want to like, I can usually tell by
Yeah.
energy,
Mhm.
but like, yeah, just communicating and relaxing.
Yeah. How do I know when I've overstepped with my communication? Like, let's say, I'm particular about certain things, or I only like, certain kinds of texture on my skin, or, like makeup brands on, like, where does the line get drawn for that, or does it not?
I mean, that would be something that needs to be discussed prior. If I showed up to a job and if you were a personality, that would more likely be discussed prior, like if there are needs or asks. If you were a model, that's not something that they would typically like discuss before. And as a makeup artist, it's my responsibility to have like not only different shade ranges, but different products for like different types of situations. If somebody like was like, I don't like any of them, then that's a you problem, you know. But I am like you said, collaborative. So it's like my skin gets really dry.
Mhm.
I don't know, things like that I would also, like, discuss
Yeah.
beforehand, but
You kinda mentioned it with, like, being as present as possible or mitigating how much you're doing while you're in the chair. Are there any pet peeves that you have specifically when somebody is sitting in front of you?
probably the computer a little bit more than the cell phone just because it's, like, chunkier, so it's
Mhm.
hard for me to, like, get close,
Yeah.
and then typically with that, the person's, like, not only the like, looking down, their head is also down, so
Mhm.
it just creates more time and,
Yeah.
like, frustration for my
What
boss.
about if I were to be coming to you for hair on a set instead? Again, like, what is my responsibility prior, and then what is my responsibility while I'm there, or my etiquette?
Yeah, I mean, clean hair, again, like, the hygiene
Mhm.
part of it. I guess, again, communication of it takes like both of us, but I like to ask a bunch of questions.
Yeah.
I think something with like textured hair, I always make sure to discuss heat because I know that there's so many different preferences and
Yeah.
I never want to disrespect someone's comfort in that way. Yeah, just if you have anything that like you're not just saying it to say it, but something that like means something to you that we're like able
Yeah.
to pivot from, I think.
Do you have a certain preference for the way in which somebody tells you that they would like an adjustment, or they prefer something? Like, literal, like, the way that people speak to you?
Yeah, nicely. I depending on the job again, if it is
Mhm.
a private client, I usually start with like, this is your face. If there's anything you want to adjust, just let me know. Like
Great.
to create that comfort. Like I remember when I used to get my hair done, like I would I've gotten it done where I'm like, I don't like it, but I didn't feel
Mhm.
like comfortable saying anything or whatever.
Yeah.
And I never want my clients to feel like that. Um, I've also gotten pretty good at responding. So like I think like kindness is obviously my first recommendation to anybody speaking
Yeah.
to any other person.
Yeah.
But if somebody like snaps at me, I'm aware that they could be having a bad day, you
Mhm.
know? So I'll try and let them know that I'm just here to like make you feel better. And
Yeah.
there are some people who like that's just the way they are and I do what I do and then I leave, being like, oh, I never want to see that person again.
Yeah.
But sometimes you turn around, like they're anxious about
Mhm.
getting their makeup done. They've never worked with me before. They've
Yeah.
had experiences in the past, and I'm pretty good at like knowing where something is coming from and
Mhm.
not taking it personally.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good reminder too, which is like ultimately we're humans, and ultimately, I mean, a good reminder for us just generally as people is to remember that we all come in with our own form of baggage, and we that manifests itself in all sorts of ways depending on the day and location and time. And just holding everyone with a little bit of grace and forgiveness, and that ultimately if you can own when communication is helpful in order to mitigate the feelings part of it, um, because everyone's just really trying to just do their best
Yeah,
literally on the day.
yeah. Like I'm a overpacker, so I'm like, what if I need this? What if I need this? What if I need this?
Mhm,
And I like to have everything so that when like if somebody is expecting me not to have something or like
mhm.
just like looking for something to pick at, we can pivot. Like I'm
Great.
there with you. Like,
Yeah.
what do you need?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was gonna be my next question, but I feel like you just answered it, which is like, do I, for both makeup and hair, need to bring anything specifically of mine to the
Oh, I would
space?
hope not.
Okay.
A lot of my clients or people I've worked with like deeper complexions will say, I brought my foundation.
Mhm.
And that hurts my heart every time I hear it.
Mm.
I understand it. It's a way for them to like protect themselves from looking uncomfortable or like
Mhm.
not having the right shade match.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to. Like that's why I'm the professional.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that the tides are still turning on, where
Mhm.
there are a lot of experiences that I've heard of clients when it comes to hair and makeup, the artist not having the right thing. And
Yeah.
in those situations, it like, especially in the moment, it seems to fall on the person, the model, the
Mhm.
client, feeling uncomfortable, feeling upset, all these things when like the professional is the one who should be embarrassed, who
Yeah.
should be called out, who like
Yeah.
that communication should be like focused on.
But let's say somebody is in that position, because I have friends who have been in a position like that, unfortunately, as well.
Yeah.
And they are feeling unseen and arguably at some point maybe unsafe because
Yeah.
of that. And not feeling like they can advocate for themselves, or that somebody has the tools or resources available to meet them where they are and what their needs are.
Yeah.
What is best in that? Obviously, it depends on the situation, depends on, like, who the boss is, and depends on the
Yeah.
the
I mean,
ladder.
that's like tricky for me personally to answer because uh what I want to say, like, or obviously I will never be in their shoes.
Yeah.
What I want to say is like fucking walk out or go to the top person and say you hired someone who doesn't like know how to do my hair. That's
Yeah.
your problem. But I mean, like there's the what if I look unprofessional? They need to make their money. They don't want to
Mhm.
like be seen as dramatic or start a problem. Like there's so many
Yeah.
factors to take into to consideration. So like how should somebody handle it? I wish that I had like a perfect answer, but what I will say is that like it is the artist's fault.
Yeah.
And it is also the person who hired them. Like both those people are equally as responsible. Like if
Yeah.
you have a person of color, if you have someone with like specific needs and that's not something you think about when you're hiring a professional, like you need to be called out for that. That can't happen
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, no, I think I love that you're naming this as something that needs to be of consideration, in that just because somebody is, say, a makeup artist, or just because somebody does hair doesn't mean that they know how to do all hair or all complexions.
Yeah.
And that on if somebody is, listening to this and they are, hiring a staff for a film that they're producing on their own, to ask these questions when you are doing the hiring too of an individual to come onto your set, and being like, what is your experience with this and how would you
Well,
be able to support the space?
I don't know if you saw part of the like the SAG agreement. I forget exactly the rules, but when it comes to textured hair, that if the stylist is like unable to complete the job, there is compensation for talent to get their hair done. And
Mhm.
there's a lot more pressure for there to be, just say, competent artist,
Yeah. Yeah,
stylist.
or well-rounded or actually trained in all of the or self-aware. Like, I
Yeah.
think there's something to be said about knowing what you can do and what you can't do, and that doesn't make you any less of an artist. It just means that there are some things that you might not be as skilled at that another person might be better suited for.
So I was thinking about that. And there's like obviously differences when it comes to makeup and hair
Mhm,
there because there are specialty stylists who maybe specialize in like locks or particular styles like braids.
mhm,
Um, not every stylist is like going to know how to do those things well, but there's a
mhm.
difference between like knowing those styles or like even like cultural styles, knowing how to creatively like come up with styles like that, um, and knowing like the basics because like textured hair is like it's still hair and you should know how
Mhm.
to style. Like if somebody has their hair braided, you can still style that, like
Yeah.
there are people who will show up with their hair braided and it's like, oh, their hair is done, but it's like it's not styled. Like
Mhm.
you put in a ponytail, a bun, it could be rebraided. Like there's like so many things that can be done with different
Yeah.
styles of hair, and that's the basics, and
Right.
that's everybody should know.
Yeah. I love that you're speaking on that, because it's the small little nuances that, for people who don't know what it is that you do, I think to understand that there is a foundation, that there is where, like, the expectations lie and where it doesn't is helpful so that we can all advocate for ourselves better the way that we need to better if we understood what is quote unquote supposed to be on the other side of,
Yeah,
that position. Um,
yeah. I mean, the way I was thinking about it is like take makeup, the makeup side of it.
mhm,
Color theory is number one for
mhm,
makeup, and to like exclude shades and ranges. When you look at it that way, it seems a lot more intentional.
mhm.
Like, how are you gonna like study something but only study?
Some of it. Yeah,
I never want to be that artist. My thing is, I want anybody to be able to sit in my chair and for me to make them feel better. I don't
yeah,
claim to know everything, but I want anybody to be able to sit down and for me to like give them a little love and for
yeah,
them to walk away and feel like taken care of.
yeah. What are some of your favorite clients or the ones that you work with a lot? You don't have to name drop them if you don't want to, but, like, what about these people that you work with often do you really enjoy with these collaborations?
My client range is pretty wide. Like I do
Yeah.
corporate to carpet to bridal, and they all like bring something different for me. I love like working with my clients one on one. Those are like more of my private clients. Um, like working with corporate is fun because it's like typically people who know nothing about my world.
Mhm.
And I would probably never really cross paths with them or have conversations, but we get to have like moments. And when they like appreciate my craft or when they like learn something or feel good, it's like, it's just cool to me. I'm like, all
Yeah.
right, I love this. And like celebrity is fun, like when you get to see your work in like a photo. That's like
Mhm.
a really, really clear, perfect Getty image. It's like there's always like that nervous weight of like when it drops, it's like, what are they gonna look like?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's just like fun, to like create a look and then to see it. And I love working with teams. I love working on set.
Mhm.
That like not only like the collaboration part and like seeing your work after, but like literally just like working with a group of people because as a freelancer, I'm often working on my own. So
Yeah.
um, I like that my jobs are all over the place because then it's just something different every day and I get to meet so many people.
Yeah. For people who are really into hair and really into makeup, and they're thinking perhaps like, huh, maybe this is something that I actually want to pursue
Yeah.
as a profession or as something to support my artistry while I'm, not performing or whatever it is. How obviously there's no one right way to
Yeah.
do this, like no artist positioning or freelance position. But where would you have people kind of start?
So like you said, there's no one way to do it. But there are like, I'll give you a few different ways to try.
Yeah.
One is like if you have a particular interest, like if you're interested in being a celebrity makeup artist, you would want to assist celebrity makeup artists. You
Mhm.
get to learn from them. And oftentimes, if you're a first assistant, if you're working with someone for a long time and they trust you and they like your work, um, you can work on their clients if they can't do it. Or you are maybe doing an eye or doing the skin while they're doing something else. So
How do you get those opportunities?
you could email an agency
Mhm.
and get yourself on an assistant roster. You could reach out to the artist directly.
Mhm.
Um, it always I've had people in my Instagram DMs saying if I need an
Mhm.
assistant, and every time I'm like, it's so weird, like, but it feels nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, like Instagram, you can find their email and email them directly. I mean, you can go to their classes, like if they're also educators, or like trade
Mhm.
shows. You can introduce yourself directly. Putting yourself out there in general is like
Yeah.
a big part of it, and that depends. Like if you're on the shyer side, maybe online is easier for you, or you can meet them in person and put yourself out there that way. I'd say like one of my top pieces of advice that has helped me a lot, not only make like money but also gain like new clients, is to be genuine. Um,
Mhm.
Even if you're not like creating like friendships where you're hanging out like every day or outside of work. Um, I love meeting artists. I love like lifting up other artists and recommending other artists. And I think that has taken me pretty far,
Mhm.
because people can trust that I'll show up if I'm like showing up with them, that I'm going to show up on time. I'm going to be professional. I'm not going to
Yeah.
try and steal your client. Like I respect the artists that I work with, and I love a lot of them. And so like not being shady, like
Mhm.
you think you're getting ahead, that's not the way to do it. Like the more people who respect you and trust you, the more recommendations that you're going to get. And then giving it back to those people. Like if you are in your ego and you're like, "Oh, I don't want to give it to my friend because then they might like her more." Like that's not an abundance attitude. And
Yeah.
your friend will probably be like, "I've given you so many jobs and then you considered somebody else over me." Like just thinking about that, I think is important, like the
Yeah.
friendships that you make. Um, you could do like a makeup course. Make sure that whoever you're learning from is someone that like you respect, that you
Mhm.
admire. I mean, I started with doing like friends and family, like my mom's friends, like
Yeah.
like play around. I think that I didn't grow up like YouTube started, I guess, like around like gaining popularity around the time that I started, but like
Mhm.
um there's a lot of pressure to be like
Yeah.
famous in whatever it is that you're doing. So I would also recommend just like not forgetting to have fun. Like
Yeah.
do it because you love it. I think
Yeah.
that will get you pretty far as well.
Yeah. No, you mentioned so many things. It's like a treasure trove because I think what you're talking about ultimately is the community part of it and like how no matter what side of this creative field you sit, it's whether you want to call it networking or you want to call it relationship building, like it really is about people. Like
Yeah.
it's a people facing industry and you are interacting with real human beings. And creating genuine relationships that then can continue fostering themselves and fostering other people. You're also calling in like-minded individuals who you really love to collaborate with, who would probably love to collaborate with you by just procuring good people around you and the people that you respect and then respect you. And the reciprocity in that, to know that no matter what, you can rest your head at night knowing that like you were truthful and
Yeah.
yourself and people around you also received that and were given that from you. It just makes the art better anyway, and also just like your day spent better and the
Yeah.
people that you're
I think it
surrounding
takes
yourself
too
with.
much energy to like, always be plotting or always be scheming or to like
Yeah.
feel like, if you're like kind of like doing that, then you're probably paranoid that other people are doing that to you.
Yeah.
And that's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah. But there's also the trust in the fact that like it's going to work out, which is really hard when we are in a society that, pushes the hustle and pushes success in quote
yeah,
large quotations, whatever that means, to remember that like eyes on your own path.
staying in your own lane.
Yeah, but, like, in a way that isn't about staying small, right? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like there's also, like, you can stay in your own lane, but also take up the space while you're in that lane, like, not to try to diminish yourself because of all the other noise or individuals around you who might be maybe louder in their own way. I think just, like, trusting that your art and your artistry is enough and will be seen and respected by those who are into that thing. And again,
Yeah.
that collaboration is going to be there, and the word of mouth from that is only going to continue. It's harder, easier said than done when you're in it, when you're just
Yeah.
like, I want more or different or whatever. But the trust.
Yeah. I've gotten advice in the past is like, even if you don't think they're listening or they're watching, like they are,
Yeah.
And so like it can be disheartening if like someone that you trusted, does something shady or whatever, but like let them be seen for that and you to
Hmm.
be seen as who you are and like not change yourself for the situations that you could be put in.
Yeah, 100%. For somebody like myself who, I wouldn't call myself a makeup aficionado or a hair aficionado in any capacity, really. I think I like have figured out how to do the things on my body for myself.
Yeah.
And, in grad school, we had to take an extensive makeup class to like age us or,
Oh,
make us
fun.
younger and different genders. And it's like all of the things and the technical part of it, which was a total blast. And I have
The
some insane
character
photos.
makeup.
Exactly,
Yeah.
total character makeup, in addition to, like, the neutral part of it,
Yeah.
but I guess some, like, tips and tricks from home for, like, any of us who wanna maybe experiment a little bit or who wanna try some things or just even foundational stuff, like,
Yeah.
anything for people, like, just humans.
Okay, so the first thing is knowing your why. Before
Okay.
you do anything, know why you're doing it.
Okay.
With the like volume of products and content that we're seeing, I think it's hard not to feel like, oh, I need this or oh, I need to.
Yeah.
So knowing your why.
I mean, that is a big question though. Like it's so noisy out there
Yeah.
in term even if you're like scrolling on TikTok or Instagram or just every single, website having their sale. Like you don't how do you and people are now, sponsored by the thing so you don't really know if it's actually right or actually good. You're just being told to get it with this discount. Like how do you even decipher through the noise if you know your why?
I mean, well, firstly, like I think in general, life advice, take a step back from noise, even if
Mhm.
it's not like makeup noise, whatever the noise is, take a step back from it. Can probably think a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
Um, so like why I wrote down like know your why. Like generally speaking, it's like, do I want my skin to look more even? Do I want my skin to look maybe like more hydrated? I get people who think that they can fix certain things because of makeup, and
Mhm.
sometimes it's skincare that they
Mhm.
need. Like people will make the joke, "Look, make me look younger." It's like I can definitely like I have tricks that can do that, and like that starts with like hydrated, fresh looking skin.
Mhm.
Tip number one.
Well, it goes back to your, like coming back the cleanliness part of it all too, which I mean that whatever the word is, what you used to
Hygiene.
phrase, what's thank you. Yeah, the hygiene part of it all,
Yeah,
which is a whole other
that's
conversation.
starting like skincare is like starting at like it's before makeup.
Mhm.
Um, I'll do like my rundown of like the basics. And when I
Love.
say it out loud, it sounds like a lot. But this is like someone who doesn't wear a lot of makeup or like a quick like day look or whatever
Okay.
is starting with skin, whether you're just wearing skincare, you're wearing a tinted moisturizer, you're wearing a full coverage foundation. Find a base that like works with your lifestyle and with your skin. Rewind, sorry. Sunscreen, sunscreen.
Yeah.
Add it to your neck, add it to your chest, not just your face. Skincare, any foundation you might use, any concealer. There's different ways that you can like layer foundation concealer. You can just wear concealer. Like say you have a breakout, you have a little under eye
Mhm.
darkness, you can just do concealer and not wear anything on your skin. So like goes back to the why. Like what do I want to accomplish with my skin? How do I want it to look? And
Mhm.
then do that. Groom the brows. Sometimes just like a little, sometimes brushing could be a night and day to like looking lifted and awake and groomed. Brow
Mhm.
gel, if you want, if your why is like, I want my brows to look more even, then you want to get a product, to help fill in the brows. Lash curler.
Okay.
Not every,
Does that eventually ruin your eyelashes? That's, I feel like, a question that I've heard a lot.
you want to keep it clean. It can
Okay.
get crusty. It can get
Mhm.
sticky. That is not healthy for lashes. You don't want to use it when the lashes have mascara on it. I know some people do that, and if it works for you, whatever. But that's not my recommendation. Yes, and I have naturally curly lashes. I don't really use a lash curler, so it's not like a necessity, but it is something that like can open up the eyes. It can
Mhm.
a little tip that can be used is like some people have in their waterline, which is like
Mhm.
on the bottom lash, it can be like a little red.
Mhm.
That can make you look tired or like if you put a nude in
Mhm.
that it can help open up the eye.
Would you say a nude eyeliner, or would it be a
Yeah,
nude, like, piece of little concealer?
a nude eyeliner.
Got it.
Yeah, because you want it to, like, stick to that area. That's a great trick for, like, if you're going on camera, like, say you have, like, an audition. Hydrated lips is an important part of that, and then you can add from there, like, you wanna add a little bit of blush, you wanna add a little bit of eyeshadow, you wanna add, like, bronzer or contour. But, like, those are, like, the
Mhm.
basics, so if you have 5 minutes or you just need to, like, level up. Um, a nice highlighter I love as
'Kay.
well. I'm a fan of cream or liquid
Mhm.
highlighters that aren't very glittery,
As opposed to a powder, you mean?
as opposed to a powder for that like that fresh look. Like
Mhm.
it looks like you just got a facial or just like
Yeah.
when you turn, it hits the light a little bit, and it just gives you that that little something extra.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
those are all things that like sometimes I'll like be with people and they're asking me about makeup, and I'm like, yeah, just these like little tricks can
Yeah.
elevate your
Yeah.
everyday look.
Well, I think it's a reminder that, I mean, again, it's anybody's comfort for however they feel comfortable and confident walking out of their own space, and I love that about makeup or no makeup. It's just, like, truly, like, you can enhance or detract from however you decide,
Yeah,
like, and that's the transformative part of it, which is really exciting. I think, again, it's, like, the pressure of, expectations that especially women are supposed to look a certain way, and then we have to, succumb to consumerism to make this happen. I mean, all of that's a whole other conversation that
mhm,
is, deeply rooted in the makeup industry, which is a billion-dollar industry, but to know the why, I love that, to come back to it, to remember for you, what are you trying to accomplish, if anything, on that day or maybe the next day, and that can
yeah,
change. Remembering that's flexible, I love that.
yeah,
What about for hair? Just like a basic, like, how do I feel like I'm a human? Let's say I don't wash my hair every day, which hopefully, many people don't, or like, let's say we're hydrating differently, or let's
yeah,
say we have different texture. Like, what are some, again, recognizing everyone's a different individual with different hair.
yeah.
Like, what is something that I can do to like help me?
I feel like for curly hair, um, water is your best friend.
Mhm.
Like, you're not washing it all the time, but it can, depending on, the porosity of your hair, it can lose hydration, and you don't necessarily need to, like, shampoo and condition your hair all over
Yeah.
again. You can, like, wet it down, and if you need to,
Mhm.
like, add more product. I'd like to, use, like, a little flyaway products.
Mhm.
That's a way to look. Oh, we'll talk, like, camera ready.
Sure.
If I get hired to make sure someone looks camera ready and we like don't have time for like hot tools or anything like that, I want to make sure that there's no like pieces out of place. Like I don't have like
Mhm.
a piece of hair sticking up here.
Right.
Or like anything that's distracting. Like if there's a piece that's like falling in my face and I have an audition, I may want to like add some spray to keep it out of my face. And like flyaways are like a big thing that like it can make you look a little unkept.
Mhm.
Um, anything that's like distracting.
'Kay.
When it comes to makeup, and like you were speaking of that feeling of like being overwhelmed and like all the things that you need. A recommendation I use it a lot with lashes, but I also think that it can be applied to anything, is that you should practice and kind of play with your makeup when you have nowhere to be or nothing to do.
Mhm.
I think there's like an added pressure when you're going out or when you have something
Yeah.
important that you're trying in that moment. It can be very overwhelming.
Yeah.
So to take that pressure off yourself, like play with it. Like makeup is like supposed to be fun.
Mhm.
So when people take it too seriously or they're like, this is the way it has to be, you have to do it this way. That's not true. Like you can find a way
Right.
that I could teach you how to like use a brush to apply your foundation and you could say, I prefer my fingers. And that's
Mm.
fine. Like
Yeah.
um so practice and play around and see what works for you. Um, it can be kind of expensive to do that with products. So wherever you
Yeah.
can get samples,
Mhm.
a lot of places will give foundation samples or, lip samples and like ask for as many of those as you can before you're like investing in all of these
Mhm.
different things. When it comes to cleaning up around your eye, whether it's like eyeshadow or eyeliner, tiny Q-tips are like a huge staple in my kit with some like
Okay.
micellar water or like makeup remover, especially wing liner. It can be like really difficult. So knowing that like it doesn't have to be applied perfectly the first time and you can like clean it up with that, or you can
Yeah.
take a flat brush, a smaller flat brush, and clean things up that way. Those are two things where people are like, I ruined it, I can't go back. Like, yes you can. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You just need the right size tool for whatever it is that you're doing. Regular size Q-tips might be like too big if you have like a small wing. So just like
Mhm.
prepare in advance to have those things on hand.
Yeah.
Going back to if you want to like do makeup or hair as a career, another piece of advice is to do test shoots, which is where a team of people, like model, photographer, like hair and makeup, stylist, will come together and everybody is there to just create.
Mhm.
It's great. It's actually really important to see your work on camera, like in
Yeah.
photo, because it could look great in person, but then you can see like maybe in the mascara that there's gaps and you missed some, and like you wouldn't
Mhm.
notice it just by looking at it. But if you were hired for a cosmetic company or if you were hired for like a shoot where
Yeah.
the product is the image, these are important things to know and to think of, and you can learn along the way of what looks good and what doesn't look good.
Yeah.
um, and then you're also like meeting other people
Other folks.
and just
Yeah.
meeting.
And also arguably getting, proof of concept in that, like, you
Exactly,
have
show
a
people your work.
portfolio.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
it's a good way
Exactly.
to also, like, see your growth. Um,
Yeah.
so that's like something that I recommend as well.
Yeah.
It can be really disheartening, if you have a bad day or a client yells at you or, like, you didn't perform how you wanted to perform. Those are always opportunities for growth.
Yeah. I love that as a reminder that, like, no matter where you sit on the creative side of it, everyone is still trying to expand, grow,
Yeah,
get more, deep with the work that they do as well as in touch with themselves. And, just going back to like what you were saying in the beginning of like really deepening the balance of your artistry and also your human life so that they both continue to expand upon each other and collaborate with each other and
yeah,
deepen with each other and that you're not separate. Like these are not they're two aspects of who you are, and probably many other aspects of who you are, but they play with each other. For anybody who wants to see your work, who wants to hire you, who wants to collaborate with you, who wants to potentially reach out to you, what within your boundaries are the best places for people to find you, reach out, all of the above?
So for like booking information, I prefer email, which is brennadmakeup@gmail.com. And to like follow my journey or my work or say hi or ask, makeup related questions or whatever, my Instagram, which is Brenna D Makeup.
Beautiful. Um, Thank you for being in the space with me and
Thank
going
you
on
for
this
having
journey
me.
and yeah, and sharing all these like tips and tricks. And I know it's so hard because it's such a visual medium what you do. So talking about it on a podcast in some ways feels a little silly because I mean, obviously we're on video here, feel free to watch the video on YouTube, whoever's listening. But it's also like, to talk about something that is such a visual medium without necessarily showing the visuals is I think a very interesting example of how do we all talk about our craft in all sorts of ways.
I hope
So,
it
um,
translates.
yeah, I believe it has, and I think, I think that's why I was excited about having you on here was to see how we can have these conversations in all sorts of ways, um, you know, and continue expanding the way that we think about all sorts of artists in our industry and how we can continue interacting with different people who are artists in their own right within the sphere that we're working in, and we interact with people like you all the time as artists, and how can we help and how can they help and everybody's helping each other. I don't know.
Yeah,
I just think it takes a village and to really understand all the players is important for us to continue expanding our artistry.
yeah, exactly. I agree.
So thank you.
Thank you.